Hello, this is producer Jake on the audio, and I'm doing something slightly different today. Whereas I'm doing an intro to my episode for a few reasons. I've never done this before, but I guess regarding this episode, I had my good friend Emily Rosca on, and we were kind of vamping before the episode, and we kind of were catching up since we live in different states, and we didn't really have a very organic introduction to the podcast. So we kind of made the snap decision that I would just record an intro later to kind of give some context. So that's cool. I've never done that before. So this is maybe a newfound practice for how I do these episodes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I had Emily on. She's a good friend of mine back from Chicago. And I asked Emily to come on to do an episode that concerns production design in cinema. Because, for one, Emily has very decadent and a wonderful sense of style, both in terms of, clothing but also her apartment layout and her passion about interior design. And ever since I've known her, that translates a lot to her love of cinema and the production design in certain films that she's really passionate about. So that's something I've always really loved too. So I thought, hey, let's do a full-on Cinebums episode about this, and I had a great time. I made a PowerPoint of all of our movies, some great visuals for you guys, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Without further ado, this is me and Emily first vamping about Showgirls for some reason, and then we get into the whole topic of production design. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So Showgirls, can you tell that story again for people? Are you okay with that?
Yeah. Like how bad the theater experience was.
Well, like, first of all, your love for Showgirls, where does that stem from? And then leading up to Seated at the Music Box and how vile that experience was.
Okay.
Well, I'm also pro Showgirls, by the way.
Oh, I know.
Which is controversial.
Yeah. Okay. Here's how I got into Showgirls. My man, Paul Verhoeven, who made my favorite movie of all time, Basic Instinct, which is the most perfect neo-noir erotic thriller. Nothing compares to it. I'm on a diehard hill to try to replicate the feeling that movie gave me the first time I watched it. It's so gritty, and I'm so bad with names. Sharon Stone, Michael Douglas. He is my favorite neo-noir actor and thriller, that whole genre.
Totally.
So the first time I watched that was life-changing. It's just so beautiful, and the femme fatales and the crime and the murder, who doesn't love that? That's what gets people to go to the movies, I feel like. Or at least back in the day, it was so scandalous, and I think that's funny. And so anyways, the director, that's how I got into Showgirls, is that he made that, and so I wanted to watch it. And then I'm fascinated by the fact that there are these movies, I feel like Babylon is the today equivalent of Showgirls almost.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a harsh thing to say, but critically, Babylon seemed to flop, and it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
What are people missing about Babylon? And so with Showgirls, there's that aspect to it where it had the infamous NC-17 rating. People were so offended by the content and by the what's the word? The acting that people just hate. They think it's
right.
I don't know the word that they use about it, but it's over the top. The whole movie's absurd, but that's what makes it amazing. It's
totally.
Such a commentary on that life and the seediness and the things that people just don't talk about. It's a very taboo subject. And what's the actress's name?
Elizabeth Berkley. Yeah.
Elizabeth, she's so incredible.
She's incredible.
Like,
That's another aspect that I think people didn't like about it at the time, because she was coming off Saved by the Bell, and she was kind of like this
exactly.
innocent, up and coming actress, and they thought that Paul Verhoeven like exploited her beauty and like her innocence for that performance. But I think she was dialed in like to the tone of that movie so perfectly. And I'm so sad that like ended her career so early, because like she was such a incredible. She could have been like a Sharon Stone-esque actress later in her life,
No, exactly. And it's just, I don't know, people are very like uppity about stuff like that and like so closed off. But like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just absurd. Like, she is truly, it's such a campy movie, and her performance is not bad. Like, her performance matches the tone of that movie and the visuals in it, and like what is needed to make that so good. And like, she was just like shunned for it. Like, she couldn't get work after that. And it's like similar to oh my goodness, Megan, our girl from When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, Meg Ryan after In the Cut. Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's another example. Like, In the Cut is so good. Like,
I love In the Cut.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's super like strange. Like, I still think about it sometimes. Like, the fact that movie is about like, crime, but you don't spend much time like with the murder part of it. And
it's almost it's like a framing device only, and it's really just used so Jane Campion could explore like misogyny and all these taboo things that you don't normally see in erotic thrillers. So that's why it's one of the best to me. I love In the Cut so much.
Yeah, and it's really something. And like, people were so upset that like America's Sweetheart, she chose to do that movie. Like, I didn't think it was very exploitative. Like, she chose to do that. It's a woman, like, female director. Like, why are people, I don't know, unfair? She like couldn't get work after that. It's just, why does this keep happening?
That Nicole Kidman was supposed to do that performance too, and I think because she's a producer on the movie.
I think I read that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've ever seen Big Little Lies. Have you seen Big Little Lies?
Oh, yeah.
The show?
Yeah.
That performance is so similar to Nicole Kidman's in Big Little Lies, in my opinion. Like, there's such a duality in terms of like trauma and how they kind of deal with it. I don't know. And even like the costuming, and like they just look so similar. And it kind of felt like that was Nicole going back to the time where she almost was in the Cut. So I don't know, but
I mean, Nicole had her moment with like Eyes Wide Shut. She did a lot of thrillers and like stuff like that. But Eyes Wide Shut is like the first one that comes to mind where you could pinpoint similarities between that and In the Cut. And
To Die For. I don't know if you've seen To Die For, but that's another Gus Van Sant movie. That's
when she's like a reporter.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it, but I think she gets entangled in a weird web of deceit and stuff. It's another erotic thriller from that time. But yeah, Nicole was definitely one of those actresses.
Yeah. But like, she's doing great today.
No, she's never faltered, honestly. She's had a pretty consistent like track record.
Yeah.
Whereas Meg Ryan, that's a shame, because that's like her best performance ever, in my opinion. And like, When Harry Met Sally is like wonderful and beautiful, but like In the Cut's like a kind of like a transformational thing. And it's I think about that movie a lot too. I don't know if that's, it's, it sticks with me.
It really, and like when I watched it, like I think I even wrote like a mini review, just because movies like really, I don't know, I feel like it takes a lot for one to like really impact me, even if like it's so moving and people like really love it and I love it and everything. But like, I feel like everything is so saturated nowadays, and like, I'm like always on my phone, always on Instagram or on Letterboxd or Googling whatever. And there's so much information, and like I have a bad memory to begin with. and like when it comes to movies, like I never remember half the time, like a movie that I know I loved, like I won't remember much of it. So for one, like In the Cut to like really linger for days, like a week. I don't know. Like I thought about it for so long, and like to this day, I mean, because I watched it with the end of last year ish. So like to this day,
Mm.
it still comes up sometimes. Like it really, I don't know what about it like kind of finds its way into your like skin a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Speaking of which, we usually talk about a movie. I mean, if you want to pull up your diary, that's what I have a terrible memory as well. So like, it's
Yeah, I
hard
have
for me to.
Letterboxd pulled up.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to go first? Like, what's a movie you watched in the past like 2 weeks that stuck with you or stands out in some sort of fashion?
In the last 2 weeks, basically in all of January, I've watched a total of 4 movies. I can list them really fast. I watched La La Land, Avatar, Babylon, and Chicago. Chicago,
Oh,
I love. I just watched that the other day because um, we're going to see it Broadway in Chicago tomorrow.
oh wow, nice.
Yeah, so I wanted to rewatch to get like a a fresh viewing. But I don't know. I mean, of the three, like I'm obsessed with all of them. So it's hard to like pick one to talk about, but like I don't know, maybe I'll be judged for this, but like La La Land is my favorite movie of all time. It's my number
Mm,
one. And I just I watched it right before going to see Babylon, and it's like so amazing to me to use your word, like the duality of those two movies and how like crazy contrasting they are because you have La La Land, which they're both so visually stunning in their own ways.
yeah.
The score by Justin Hurwitz,
Oh
I
my God, yeah.
estimate he's so incredible. Like I think I literally listened to the La La Land playlist or soundtrack in its entirety yesterday, like while I was cooking. Um,
Do you have a vinyl? Do you own the vinyl?
no, not yet. I like haven't. I have a record player and I have a few
Mm-hmm.
records, but I can never bring myself to like buy those. Like I haven't entered my vinyl era, if so to speak. So I have a list, and La La Land is one of them. Um,
Definitely, yeah.
but Babylon is just, it was such a gruesome movie. I feel like it was very visceral and
Yeah, yeah.
it was hard to watch in many ways. And like, even just from like personally, people like did not, from what I was reading, people like had things to say that weren't amazing about the opening sequence and like that it dragged on for too long. But like, I
Hmm.
loved that opening sequence so much, like the excess
Same. Yeah, yeah.
and the music and the costumes and the lights, like everything about that is like what I love about movies. And the
Mm-hmm.
whole like, first third, basically, with how they showed like the production of movies and like the craziness of like those sets back in the day before sound. It just did
Absolutely.
an amazing job of showcasing, not that I know so much about that time in Hollywood, but showcasing that era and the feeling that elicited, and for it to just go downhill so much and to end, not end quite, but with that scene in the the layers of hell, basically.
Toby
uh,
Maguire scene.
yeah,
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
those, that it was just, I read a lot about Dante recently and like the Inferno and everything, and it's on my list to read that. And so like to watch that, it was very I guess good timing. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think about Babylon all the time.
Same.
All the time. I need to go see it again.
I loved it. I saw it again on my birthday because I was just like, I need to experience this again so
Mhm.
quickly after. I love the first two set pieces. I know people were like really mixed up, especially the first part, but that's so integral to the whole movie to draw you into like the major contrasts that the industry had, pre and post sound and stuff, and kind of
Yeah.
like the freedom and the excess that they had and the kind of like the boundless opportunities they had to do whatever the hell they wanted.
Yeah.
And that's where the movie soars for me, like especially like the making of the two films with Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie and how like cross cuts, like that's
Yeah.
so infectious to me for sure. And like, um, and yeah, no, I talked about Babylon a lot on the podcast already, so I'm like running out of things to say about it, but I agree.
Yeah.
I adore it, and I hate to break it to, so I told Lucas about this, but like La La Land isn't my favorite movie of all time.
I think he actually recently mentioned that to me.
I know I've caught a lot of flack over the years. I do like it. I'm just not
No, I don't. I know like people.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very like white person thing to say that like.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's okay.
La La Land.
So,
I just do.
So is Babylon, honestly, if you want to break it down. But
It's true.
I was like, that's kind of the Damien Chazelle movie that kind of won me over on him was Babylon. So, which is funny because most people it's La La Land, and I like the fucked up, excessive like Death of Hollywood movie more than the magical like La La Land. So
yeah,
that's more about me. But
no, for me, like La La Land. I don't know, people when they talk about like, oh, what was the movie that like got you into cinema? Like I've been watching movies my whole life, but not to the like not in the way that I do today and like with the thought that I do today. But like when La La Land came out in 2016, I watched that movie like 4 times in like a week. Like I do not exaggerate. And it was like genuinely life-changing for me to like feel those feelings in a movie and to be so sad by the ending and like of life. And I don't know, it had an impact on me. And I still have to watch Whiplash, but then
you know what? Really? Well, okay.
I know it's on my list. I wanted to before Babylon came out, but I didn't make it.
It's very sweat inducing and it's stressful. It's like the polar opposite of La La Land too. So
seems like a good trilogy.
Yeah. That was like an entry point for me that made me love movies was actually Whiplash, funny enough.
Oh, yeah?
So yeah, I mean, I was like pretty impressionable. I was like 16 and I'd never seen a movie like that. And I was like, holy shit, this is one of a kind. But yeah, what was I going to say about La La Land?
The sequence.
No.
Damien Chazelle knows how to make an opening sequence. I mean, what can I say?
Absolutely, and a finale too.
Yeah,
like he ends his movies on the highest note of like emotionality and like kind of throwing everything he has at the wall. Like the final sequence in Babylon 2 is like it's kind of just it's excessive, but it's also necessary to the movie. And I know a lot of people didn't like the montage with Avatar at the end. Yeah. Like,
the fact that Avatar is included is like the most perfect thing ever.
It's so perfect. Yeah. Like, I don't know. But no, I was going to ask about La La Land. Did that movie like open your door for like backstage musicals, like Technicolor musicals from like the 50s? Like, have you watched any since La La Land?
No. No, I will be the first to admit I'm going to be shy about the fact that I'm trying. It's like, no, there's a gap in my film education and I'm trying to remedy it because I don't have the knowledge of like all of the movies that have influenced movies like La La Land. What is that? Singing in the Rain?
Singing in the Rain, Umbrellas of Cherbourg are the big ones, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I've never seen those, but I've never seen
It's fair.
I really need to do that.
Singing in the Rain is like my highest possible recommendation for musicals, but also American in Paris, which is another Gene Kelly movie.
That's on my list.
That's like my favorite musical ever. And I don't know, have you seen Cabaret?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I was gonna say a Fosse is necessary too if you're gonna go down the musical hole. All that jazz. Yeah.
All that jazz is insane.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah.
No, Cabaret like was so blown away by it when I watched, and Liza Minnelli so stunning and chaotic.
Wonderful, yeah. One of the best musical performances.
Like sometime last year when they did a re-release for whatever anniversary of the movie or something. So I saw it at AMC one afternoon.
That's fun. Awesome. Yeah, she's a national treasure for sure. Okay, I'll talk about one I watched a few days ago. So my friend had never seen Blue Velvet, so that we decided to throw it on one night. And it had been like, have you seen Blue Velvet? I know we've talked about David Lynch. Yeah,
that's
yeah, he's my man too. I mean, Yeah,
You and
no.
I have the same taste in movies, and it's very great.
Except that I told you I don't love La La Land. I think that's a
Well,
big
I can
barrier.
forgive. I can forgive.
Yeah. But no, Blue Velvet is that's another movie that kind of broke my head open early on for movies. Mulholland Drive too. I saw those like within the span of like a month when I was like a teenager. And I
Yeah.
was kind of like Lynch became like one of my guys for sure. But Blue Velvet, like, I mean, that's a movie that's been talked about to death, but the middle America aspect and like the picket fence picturesque
Suburban.
of suburbia America is something I just always love. Like I love John Waters and like Douglas Sirk. And he was also, speaking of Technicolor, I feel like he was channeling a little Technicolor stuff in that movie, rewatching it. But yeah, I love every aspect of Blue. Like you were talking about neo noirs. I'd forgot how it's kind of like Lynch's neo noir, or at least his ode to like a neo noir sort of movie.
I think Mulholland Drive is too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I forgot about all the like Kyle MacLachlan for a majority of this movie is doing detective work, and he's kind of like the way he meets Laura Dern at coffee shops is kind of reminiscent of like a classic noir movie. And that obviously channeled over to like Twin Peaks and all that stuff, and kind of like that's really the blueprint for the rest of his career was Blue Velvet, like in many respects. And of course, Dennis Hopper is just like
such a menace.
Is such a menace.
He's so scary in that movie.
He's horrified, yeah. And he's what a presence. Isabella Rossellini is incredible. Laura Dern, obviously, like he found some great like actresses in that era. Like especially Laura Dern became like his muse for. I don't know if you've seen like Wild at Heart and.
Oh, I love Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart is so good, yeah. And Inland Empire is really great. Like I'm so glad she became Lynch's muse for a long time. Like she's such a great presence for his tone and everything. So.
Oh, totally.
So yeah, where is what's your favorite Lynch movie yourself?
Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, same. I mean, that's the default answer and the boring answer, but like I don't know what could possibly dethrone. I love Twin Peaks the movie though. That's like a big Fire Walk with Me. Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah. I actually have a funny story with Fire Walk with Me. So I've seen it twice, and one time was with Lucas, like at home on the TV. We had finished, Twin Peaks and all of that, so it was time to watch the movie. And then a second time was at a 35, I think it was 35 millimeter screening of it at the Music Box. And they brought, man, I'm so bad with names. What is her name?
Laura Palmer? Cheryl Lee, yeah.
Cheryl Lee, and then the guy, the actor who played the boyfriend in high school. Yeah, Bobby.
I don't know the actor's name, but yeah, everyone knows Bobby.
Yeah. I never remember names like of anything, but the two of them came to do a Q&A after that screening.
That's awesome.
It was like a last minute thing, like that I even found out that the Music Box was doing that. And I had prior plans like with a friend, and the show was sold out, but I'm like, this is like my favorite TV show like of all time. These are two actors who like to be in the same room as them, like would be otherworldly. I mean, like what more could you possibly want as like a Twin Peaks fan? And so she ended up changing course with me and like came to see Fire Walk with me. And like beforehand, I was like, just so you know, like it is marketed as a horror movie, but like me, I didn't remember much of the movie at all. So like I didn't know to tell her that it's like a horrible, like painful watch.
Yes.
And at least like, I mean, I saved my ass unintentionally by like telling her that I didn't remember much of the movie. We like went to see it, and like I was able to get tickets because it was sold out, but they had, you can usually still go if you just show up. And she was so mad at me after that screening because it was like so uncomfortable for her to watch that, and she like is not a movie fan. She doesn't care about David Lynch. She's never seen Twin Peaks. Like it's not something she cares about at all, or like wants to. It's not her thing.
Oh gosh, she was probably so lost, like story-wise and everything.
Yeah, and she was just so upset that like she was watching that, but she also like didn't have the gall to just like leave. Like, why didn't you leave? Like, I wasn't gonna leave
Maybe
because
she didn't want to be rude to you because she was like, you were clearly a Twin Peaks fanatic, and she's like, but yeah, she should have left
I
it.
would have respected it. Like, I wouldn't have been mad. It's like, yeah, do what you have to do. Like, whatever. And
Yeah.
then we didn't even stay for the whole Q&A because she was so
Oh,
uncomfortable and like upset with me.
oh.
My story with Firewalk with me.
You
What
know
a
what?
time.
That's unfortunate for sure. But I saw that movie for the first time at the Music Box too, actually, in 35. It was, I don't know if you were around for this, but they did like a retrospective. I think this was like 2017. Yeah.
I went to the
Yeah.
retrospective like this last year. So like I
They did
did,
another one. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw Twin Peaks. I saw Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Eraserhead, and they played like the pilot of Twin Peaks: The Return, and I saw all those, and it was like the greatest retrospective ever. But
That's how I
Firewalk,
felt about it last year too.
yeah, it was. What did you see? Do you see all those, or did you see? Was it just Twin Peaks?
Um, I didn't go to see Firewalk with Me was like a whole separate occasion. It wasn't for the retrospective.
Oh, gotcha,
Um,
gotcha.
but at the retrospective, I went to Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Firewalk. No, not Firewalk with Me. Wild at Heart and Inland Empire.
Oh God, how was Inland Empire on the big screen?
Insane.
Yeah.
I mean, like it was so long. Like I could not believe that movie. I didn't know. Like I didn't do much reading on it or anything beforehand.
Mm.
I don't even think that I knew that it was recorded on like that camcorder. The whole
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
so it was very like,
Throws you off at first.
yeah, it was really an experience. But I was really glad. Like that's the first and only time so far that I've seen it. So
It's hard to rewatch frequently. It's all similar to Firewalk with Me. It's a little punishing
yeah,
and terrifying. Like there's a sequence where Laura Dern's on the street in that movie, and there's like strobe, and that's like always stuck with me, like that imagery.
oh
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
Jesus. But it is also like a brilliant depiction of Hollywood again.
yeah.
Like kind of a great follow up to Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it at some point, but that's like I own it. Oh, I bought it with you. At that one store.
You bought it at Amoeba, right? Yeah,
Yeah, at Amoeba. I've never touched it.
yeah.
Um,
I got it for my birthday one year, and I still haven't rewatched it. I need to throw it on again, but like I said,
it's not one you can just like sit down and pull it out.
yeah, no, it's tough. So yeah, in terms of production design, what guy did you have like for me? I had like a deep fascination with interior design, like especially at a young age for some reason. Like when I was in middle school to high school, I became obsessed with I played a lot of video games, and I played a lot of games where you designed houses, and like sometimes it was like fantastical, like it was like you were designing castles and cottages. I don't know what these games were, but it was like random games I was playing on my PC.
That's so
But
fun.
it was weird, but it was a weird phase of my life. But for like 2 years, I told people that maybe I want to be an interior designer when I grew up. So naturally, yeah, no, it wasn't like serious. It was kind of like I told my mom that I like to design houses and I like those shows, and she was like, "You should become an interior designer." But it kind of faded away. But when I got into movies, I often gravitated towards like set design and the whole kind of set building aspect of everything, and the way that especially houses and apartments look. Was it like similar for you, where you were just like, you liked interior design and like naturally you watch movies and it's like the same? You just kind of love that aspect too.
It's actually so funny. I did not know this about you, and like I wanted to be an interior designer when I was young.
Really?
Yes, it was between interior designing and architecture, but then I soon discovered that I hated math. And
Same.
so architecture was like quickly off the list. And then interior design, it was a dream for like so long, but not something that I ever like pursued. But my mom, she doesn't like have a career in it, but it's like, for, certain things happened in life, whatever, that it didn't happen the way, in another world like it should have. But I like grew up with her always like being very meticulous like about our home, and especially recently, like they moved to Cincinnati a few years ago, and the house there is like, I feel like it was like made for them, like they were meant to move there and to have that house, and it's like from the 1800s.
Wow.
And it used to be like it's a historic house. Like they don't have to maintain it like for the government or anything, but like it has a plaque on the door. Like it was like a house where there was like a raid during it'd be like the Civil War.
What?
Some insane like history to that house. And it's a yellow farmhouse, and it's like my mom's favorite color.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
yeah, and so when they moved there, she like had the opportunity to like basically design that whole space. And I love like it's not like any house like we've ever lived in, like the way that she did that interior. But I love going home and like being in that space because it's so warm and it's so cozy, and like it's just home, And so she's always had this skill, this like passion and whatever for interior design. And I think I have it from her. I mean, I don't know where else it would come from, but it must have, I guess I get it from her. And it really is something that I think I like came into during quarantine when like I had a lot of time to do stuff, I suppose. And so I was like getting a lot more into thrifting and like vintage stuff, and like actually putting together my like apartment that's been coming. I mean, it's done now, but it's, for 2 years, I basically spent all that time like designing it and everything. And I think during COVID, when I discovered Letterboxd and entered, made my foray into the film world, I started paying attention to movies, and like with this newfound love of like vintage. And I guess I've always had a love for interior design, but not the way I do like today. I just started noticing homes like so much more, and trying to pay attention to like the feeling that it elicits, and like keeping track of the spaces that I love and that I think are so like well lived in and well designed in movies.
Yeah.
I couldn't pinpoint like one movie that like, well, no, Rear Window actually, long before, in like middle school or whenever I first watched that movie, actually. But
No, that's like probably the quintessential, like we were talking about before. Like that's interior and exterior design, like just utilized perfectly in film. And the whole movie is about space, like spatial awareness, and the way the layout is kind of built for the film and stuff, which we're obviously going to talk about it in a second. For me, it was actually, it's so stereotypical, but it was Wes Anderson. Where I like actually notice production design being an art form in film itself, because that illustrates like the feeling of warmth and kind of nostalgia in such a profound way. I think it must have been Grand Budapest Hotel. I mean, that's like one of the most beautiful sets I've ever seen in any movie. And like, obviously he's like the quintessential set decorator, and also like filling the frame with just layers upon layers of props and colors and everything. So that was it for me. That's where I like really noticed, and like, holy shit, set dressing is like its own thing in movies. And then I would just notice like, oh, I would live in that house, or I would want to like, I would use that apartment for something, that I started to think that way. And I still do.
That Hotel has been on my list to rewatch for so long, because I've seen it once, like when it came out, and I just don't remember like any of it besides the pink hotel.
Yeah, that's the main thing. It's like you can't forget the imagery, but like the movie itself is like perfect in and of
Yeah.
itself. So, yeah, do you just want to get into the stuff, the movies that we chose, like the
Yeah.
PowerPoint? All right.
I love
Let
that
me,
you did a PowerPoint.
I know I did my homework for this.
Exclamation.
I'm excited about it. It excites me for sure. All right. The first one is Rear Window, which you touched upon. I couldn't find as many photos of of James Stewart's apartment on Google, but maybe if you want to elaborate. But I have the courtyard, and I kind of have like the spot of where he's stationed at for the whole film. So
Yeah.
yeah, this was your first pick here.
Um,
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it online, but I think there's like I love lamps. And I think there's like a pendant lamp in Rear Window that like I always think about. Um, okay, basically like let me see. In like I've been thinking a lot recently about set design and what I wanted to say on this podcast, and I like can't I don't know, I really struggle to separate like clothing in, well, like with certain movies like Rear Window, like I
Mm,
feel like I can't separate like the costumes and like Grace Kelly's ball gowns and like her pearls and her chicness from like that whole setting, because like when
sure.
it plays her into the home, she like doesn't, like she looks out of place.
Yeah.
But I love the love between our main characters, and
Mm,
I don't know, what can I say? Like the first thing that I think of with the interior of Rear Window is the pendant lamp. It's like I've just found a photo of it on Pinterest, but it's like, just the hanging string with
oh yes.
the
Okay.
pleated the pleated shade, and you like can touch it from above. And that home is like, I don't, it's so lived in. Like,
Yeah.
we're like in a different era where like back then that was probably so normal. But for me, like seeing those film cameras and the like stunning pendant lamps with the pleats, and like it's just so cozy. It's so at home. It's like nothing special when you like actually stop to think about it. Like Cary Grant, I forget his name in the movie, but like
James Stewart.
James Stewart, like he's not home to like think about his interior or his space. Like it doesn't seem like a space that he put a ton of effort into. I think he travels.
Mm,
He might have like pieces from different places he's gone, like on the walls or like his bookshelf or whatever. And it just, because of that, it's like so lived in, but it's so well
mhm.
curated to his life and to his like what seems like a pretty minimal need in his space. And
Yeah.
you spend the whole time basically like in that movie with him, like you said, in that one corner. And I just wish I could be in his apartment.
I agree. I
Like to
totally
have
agree.
that view like of the courtyard. Like I mean, I don't know, I feel like it changed my view of like people and just how I like literally see things, thinking about like what people, I don't, like we're all just out here, all, however many 7 billion of us, like each have our own lives, but like they never intersect, and everyone has like their problems and this like huge
Mhm.
stratospheric feeling that they have about themselves. And like this movie's just so perfect. I
Absolutely. Wow, that got really philosophical.
I'm
No,
serious. Like that movie
no,
is
I
like
agree with you. Yeah,
life changing.
it is. Yeah, I mean, it's all about your perception on, and because that movie quite literally handicaps a character so he can observe and see things you wouldn't normally see, and it's all about point of view. And yeah, I never thought of his apartment but that way, but it's so true. It's so lived in, and it's everything's so meticulously placed. Um, and I don't know if you remember, but there's when he's scanning across the courtyard, I think his neighbors to the right of him have like this kind of open windowed apartment where you could just see like a piano and like the couple just sitting there reading a magazine or something. And they have like this kind of like a high fashioned looking apartment. Like you kind of like different facets of wealth around this courtyard.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, no, Sam Comer is one of my favorite set dressers who worked with Hitchcock a lot. My personal favorite look he's ever done is in Vertigo, which I'm not sure if you remember or have seen that film, but like the colors and
I've seen, but I don't remember. It's also one that I need to rewatch.
highly recommend you watch it again. It's just like some of the best Technicolor, but also like the designs of the restaurants and how kind of monochromatic they are just so beautiful to look at, and probably the best capturing of San Francisco and like its architecture and the how things are like dwarfed from how large like the Golden Gate Bridge is and all that stuff. I don't know. I love it, but that's a great way to kick us off, because like that is the quintessential interior and exterior design, I think, in film, in my opinion. So
yeah. I also love that couple that lives across from him that like just brings their mattress out in the summer to sleep on.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I wish I could do that. Not like I'm not that I have a balcony, but like if I had a balcony, I think I would still say I wish I could do that, because I don't think I'd ever be able to bring myself to like bring my mattress out there.
Right.
It's just there's like a whole little like organism, what is the term for like that's not the right word, but like for this courtyard, it's like a whole like world unto itself. And
it feels like you're observing like a fish tank, or like I don't know, you're at the zoo and there's like this kind of this exhibit, because it's all so perfectly laid out, like we said. I'm glad you mentioned sleeping outside, because I love to sleep outside when I've stayed at friends' places like in warmer climates who have futons on their decks, and if they do,
really?
I will sleep outside no matter how cold it gets at night. It's so fun. Yeah. I eventually want to get a porch, like a big porch with an awning, so I can put a futon out there and I will sleep outside whenever it's warm enough.
So perfect.
Maybe get a heating blanket. I don't know. I don't want to like get hypothermia, but I love doing that.
I mean, the sleep must be incredible.
It is. I usually drink beforehand, because it's hard to, I don't know. It's kind of a stupid thing to do, because I don't know, but I love doing it. So my first pick is a film called Still Walking, which is a Japanese movie. And I just love Japanese homes. And I love, like, I don't know if you've seen like Tokyo Story, or like there's classic Ozu films from the 50s, but it's just those that this kind of like the open space of these Japanese homes is something I just love. And like the sliding doors and the silhouettes and the paper thin walls that you could easily just separate. Like there's an aspect to Japanese homes that are so like customizable and cozy. And Still Walking has like the greatest dinner table I've ever seen in cinema, because like
this one here on the floor.
Yeah, you can see that the whole movie kind of revolves around their family dinners and the way they kind of interact at the dinner table, and just something about them sitting on the floor feels almost like childlike, and I don't know, it's just kind of like so comforting to me. And also, you can see the picture on the right of the old man, and like kind of like they have like a great garden and an amazing just pasture of greenery behind them. So it's kind of that aesthetic of like the warmth on the inside and then the overwhelming colorful nature of the outside. And that's a lot of that's part of why I love Japanese cinema is the houses that you get to like sort of live in throughout the movies.
Yeah.
And Still Walking, I love food movies too. And I couldn't find a picture of the kitchen, but I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but like kitchens in movies and a well put together, just unique kitchen is one of my favorite things. So
yeah,
I had to bring this one up.
I haven't seen it, so I'll have to I'm feeling very invigorated about movies again. not that I like haven't been, but I just have not been watching many this year, and so this is making me like so excited to like watch the movies that we've been talking about. Like we watched Vertigo
Hmm.
and Grand Budapest Hotel and see Still Walking because
Definitely,
like
yeah.
warm hugs.
they
Just
that's a lot of my sets that I'll be talking about are just, is just the warmth of them and the
same with mine.
I love coziness. Yeah, that's a big thing for me. Speaking of coziness, here's
Oh my gosh,
this
that's the
is a
best movie. There is
I
nothing dreamier than this home. I mean, like,
absolutely.
I don't know, my whole life, like, all I want is to just move to Europe. You don't even have to live there permanently, but if I could, like, live there for like a year or like get to a spot where, like, you can have a summer home or like a rental where you can go, like, the family in this movie where they
Yeah.
are only there, like, over the summer.
Yeah.
Um,
This is
that's
Call Me by Your Name, by the way, for you audio listeners out there. We have slides. I should have explained.
yeah,
But yeah,
we
this is the house
will.
and the courtyard of Call Me by Your Name that we're discussing.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, like, there's really not much to say, I feel like, but there's just, I recently saw a thread on Twitter, like the first time I've gone on there in like months, about he's like some, I don't know, city planner, whatever he does, where he
mm,
like showed a photo of some city in like Croatia maybe or something like that, where it's so beautifully architecturally like created, and it's like a little peninsula kind of, and homes and cities in the United States just don't look like that. They're
yeah.
so stark. They're so like there's no creativity. Not that, we love New York, like that's special, and Chicago's stunning and stuff like that. Places in California and everywhere. Like, not to say that the US is ugly by any means at all, but like movies like Call Me by Your Name that take place in Europe and in Italy, you see these old homes that are like palazzos basically, right? And they're so antique and
Hmm.
old, and you don't have that here. Like, you don't have houses that look like this, or if they do, they're not authentic. They're like people trying to recreate that look, and it's not genuine, and it's basically worse. And
Hmm.
I don't know, to like have the look at them like just laying there on like the stone
I
roof.
know.
It's just like built into the ground. Like they have the most stunning property.
It's
This
unbelievable.
art, and like it's exactly like the people who live there. The father's so educated. Like all of them are like musically and like with literature and art, and it
Yeah.
like really just reflects that so well. Like you can't see this family living in some like cookie cutter house like in the United States.
Yeah, no, they have elegant taste, absolutely. And I love the scenes of Michael Stuhlbarg kind of explaining art and how that kind of mirrors their interior design of just they love I think I don't know what period of art to be honest, but like
Mm.
sort of this Renaissance period of sculpture and like how their fascination with old things kind of just perfectly mirrors like especially this living room here. Like you could just see not only the paintings but the chandelier looks vintage and the furniture and everything and the fireplace feels like it's plucked out of like this 1800s or something.
Oh, and I'm
um
sure it's the original too.
exactly, yeah. And I love outdoor dining. It always comes back to
Oh, what a dream.
fucking dining tables for me, but like them eating outside and they're like kind of sandwiched between their beautiful home and like the kind of peach trees on the other side. It's like I couldn't imagine a more like elegant way to eat dinner every night. It's like God,
Yeah.
I would.
I don't know. They're so in tune with like nature.
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
love how that's incorporated inside in like the
Hmm.
colors and in the warmth and the easy access to the outside. Like
Yeah.
yards are not the same here, like you just
Hmm.
it's not going to be as the same property where the outside is like an extension of your inside,
Yes.
except maybe in like some celebrity homes that you might see like on
Right.
architectural digest tours.
Oh, I love those.
Here.
I get a lot. I watch those all the time. It's kind of um yeah, no, that's one of the best. And it's one of those movies I would live in if I had a choice. Like that'd probably be the first one. And they live right by like a river that you can catch fish and eat it for dinner. It's like it couldn't be the more perfect setup. And like you could ride your bike to the downtown area, which again, stunning architecture. I should have put a photo of them walking around I forgot what city
Yeah, I
that
was
they're
about to say,
in.
do you remember what city?
No, I don't. Um, our Italian listeners will be upset with us, but I don't know. I have no idea. My next one is a movie called
The
Sex.
town of Crema. It's an hour outside of Milan.
Okay, that makes sense. What city do they go to in the second half of the movie? Is it Milan, or do they go to it's not Rome. They go to some urban city in the second half of I don't know. But
Yeah, I don't remember. I know what you're talking about, but
speaking of homes, I don't know have you heard of this movie Sexy Beast from 2000?
no. It's going on the list.
It's so good. This is a Lucas movie too. Lucas would love this movie. So this is a movie from Jonathan Glazer, who went on to direct movies like Under the Skin and Birth.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
He's just such a amazing contemporary director, but this is his debut movie. And a lot of this movie takes place at this home that located in somewhere Eastern Europe. I honestly forget. I should have researched it, but I just love this. The house in this movie is it's first of all, everything's white. And the viewpoint of the coast is just stunning. But it's the pool for me that this is one of my favorite pools in movies. And it's really integral to the story of this movie in a lot of ways. Like, I don't want to spoil anything.
The vibe, like I get do you know the swimming pool, like La Piscine, the French movie?
I've heard that's another one. Yeah.
This photo, like specifically that you have up here, reminds me of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was inspired by that. Yeah. It might be. Yeah. But yeah, there's like this house for some reason, like you could feel like you could see like he's sunburned in that photo. Like this is one of those movies you could really feel like the sun kind of just powering over the home and everything. And I don't know. It's hard to describe the feeling that it evokes. Well, you'll have to watch the film to know what I'm talking about. But it's like this kind of kitschy Eastern European crime home. And it's kind of reminiscent to something like The Godfather or even like Gone with the Wind, like these weird isolated homes. And like they have everything is kind of like laid out so perfectly. Everything's, like I said, monochromatic white. But yeah, it's just, I think about this pool often when I think about swimming pools in cinema. So I just had to talk about it. So
the views are amazing with the mountains in the background.
I know it's just, yeah, God, it's so great. And I love homes that are kind of like on an incline and like they're kind of built into the architecture of a hill somehow, which can be,
right.
They can be kind of terrifying in some respects, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it. And it reminds me of a home that you'd see like in Calabasas or in Santa Barbara, California, like on the coast, like these kind of homes that kind of you drive by on the highway. So
yeah, Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
Those houses all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's mine. And you mentioned Ferris Bueller, which is mainly for the architecture, right?
Yes. You didn't put the photo up here, or not that you knew because we didn't talk about it. But
yeah,
the only thing with Ferris Bueller's Day Off is Cameron. I can't even remember. I can't believe I remembered his name, but Cameron's home. That beautiful.
Oh, damn it!
Like,
yeah.
The house that like I don't know the term for it, but again, it's like very in the woods, like it's one with nature, and it's full of glass. It has like the stilts over like the hill and stuff somewhere in the North Shore suburbs here of Chicago. And that house, like, this isn't really an interior or like a I mean, I guess it's production design, but like that house, I think like has to be like one of the most like wow scenes or like homes in a movie that I think I must have seen like as a kid, because of course this is like a classic movie that you watch like when you're small. And
Yeah.
I think I was like blown away because I was, learning about Frank Lloyd Wright and his houses and like his philosophy with like incorporating nature into them, or rather building the houses to be like one with nature. And that house, I have no words. I mean, like, I don't know how I would feel about living in a glass house, but like, it's so like solitary and in the woods. Like, maybe it just doesn't matter that you live in glass like
Yeah.
that. But
It's like unapologetically bourgeois a little bit, that house. And the
yes,
fact he has like a car showroom inside of his own home in the garage, it feels like you're at an auto show all of a sudden. It's like,
I know.
God, yeah. There's a lot of houses like that in like Evanston and along the coast of northern Chicago. So it's like, it really reminds me of home in that respect. Like, so you see a lot of those houses like overlooking Lake Michigan and
Mhm.
stuff, or just in the woods, completely just isolated from the world.
Yeah, I
Um,
need to like seek those out more to like go on walks in those areas because like I
yeah.
love the North Shore suburbs for the architecture, but like when I'm driving, like I don't have the same ability to like
Hmm.
gaze at the houses. But like houses like that like are always in the trees. Like you're not going to see them directly off of whatever road you're on. So that's why you got to go to estate sales.
I need to, absolutely. I need to start thrifting like you. My apartment's been so like barren so far.
It's
Oh,
therapeutic.
I
But
know.
when next time I come to visit, like on the list, like we have to go to an estate sale because like I cannot imagine a more perfect place to go to an estate sale. Like think if we could go to one in like the hills, or
Oh
like
man.
any of those houses where like think about the art in those. I mean, like I love going to estate sales mostly for the architecture and like getting to
Mm.
see inside someone's house more than like specifically hunting for treasures. But oh my gosh, I love it.
No, I would love to do that to see the house. Like, is the art affordable usually? Like, can you find good deals? It like depends.
Yeah, it definitely depends. Like I have definitely found cool things at estate sales and like sometimes like the most unassuming house from the outside is like the coolest like vintage treasure trove inside.
Mm.
So sometimes you just don't know, but then maybe they just really want to get rid of stuff, so they're not going to be like uppity about prices. But it really just depends. Sometimes estate sales can be like very expensive, especially when like
Mm.
you know, because unlike at a thrift store where you might come across like some insane vintage mid-century piece of furniture where like online it would cost like let's say like thousands of dollars. Like in an estate sale, it's more likely that they'll charge something like that because they'll
Hmm.
know the designer and like the period and all of that. But you never know. You could definitely find exciting pieces.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do that next time. I'm very into that idea. Or even
Yeah.
just go into. They have a lot of outdoor thrift events in LA that I've been meaning to go to.
Yeah, I've always
Um,
wanted to go to stuff like that too.
they're very extravagant. Like, there's a lot of tents and there's a lot of like designer stuff, but also art and food. Like, they're a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
we'll have to do that eventually. Okay, so I had to put on Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli movie just because it's not technically set design. It's more in the animation department, but I just had to talk about the architecture of Kiki's Delivery Service. To my knowledge, this have you seen this film, by the way?
No.
Oh God, Luke. I think Lucas has seen this movie. He knows that he's a big fan also, but I think it's a fictitious town that Kiki lives in. But if you could see just the architecture and the layout of the city is just so perfect in every way. And I couldn't find a photo, but she lives in sort of this apartment. It's kind of like a garden apartment in a bakery, I believe. But yeah, again, going back to Japanese architecture, and kind of, I feel like Miyazaki was trying to marry like Japanese architecture with the greenery and the um Yeah, the interiors specifically is what I meant to say. But
Mhm.
also like kind of like Italian or like architecture from Spain.
Yeah.
I would say, and definitely in the coloration of like the roofs and everything and the layout of the buildings. Um, so yeah, and obviously how everything. I love stuff on the coast, and this movie has like some amazing coastal shots, and the house on the right is where like the main witch, if you will, of the story
Mhm.
lives. And I just love the overgrown greenery on the house and like the spherical, I don't know what do you usually call like that spherical room in a house, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh
That's
yeah.
like
Like
kind of,
like Rapunzel's tower. Like I don't know what
yeah.
it's called.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd call that, but it kind of has like a cone sticking out of the top. I just love that, and mainly the greenery of here. And there's like an amazing. Again, I couldn't find a photo, but there's like an incredible indoor garden and everything.
So
So
cool.
yeah,
Those
I
windows
mean,
are beautiful.
they are absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, there's just a rich sense of history and lived in nature, especially for an animated movie. It's like how the hell did they do this? I just don't understand. But
Yeah.
I could have
That's
picked any. I could have picked any Miyazaki film for this, but this is had to shed some light on Kiki. The Holiday.
so good. The Holiday is like also a quintessential set design movie.
Yes.
Because both houses, okay, here we go again with like the thing between like the US and Europe. Like, look
Yeah.
at like, obviously like I feel like rich people would not like see this house and be like, oh my gosh, what a work of art, like this little home in England. But like here you can so obviously see like the one little like stone tiny house is like belongs to a woman who, she's like not rich, she's just like your average person, but it's so much homier and so much more lived in and more beautiful than like the California home at the bottom there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think like with interior design in movies, like I feel like the best purpose that they serve is like to be an extension of our characters who
Yes.
are like, seeing live life in these films. And The Holiday is such a perfect example because you have your like, I don't know if she's actually a studio executive, but you have like your
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood woman here with like a nobody, for lack of a better word, from Europe, who they switch houses, which like what a dream.
Yeah.
And it's so representative of their lifestyle and of their personalities. But to me, like the stone house is like, look at that like exposed brick inside with like the little wood windowsill and like the towels stacked over there with what looks to be like newspaper on top and the little plants that are growing. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so, I don't know, you just like that house just looks like someone who like cares and someone who like lives within their means. And
Yeah.
it's a home where the other one just doesn't look like a home. It just looks like a house.
Yeah. Or like an overly like stylish like resort or something. It's like comically big for one person to live in also. Cameron Diaz's home.
Oh
And yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love the whole movie, and a lot of Nancy Myers's movies are about the homes and like the extravagance of certain aspects of the homes and like the kitchen. She's a big kitchen director too. She loves kitchens. Um,
Mm.
yeah, that the bathtub I had to put in because like that's an iconic image from the only not only because she's so big for the bathtub, but it's like I've never seen a bathtub designed in that way.
It
So it
is so funny. It looks
yeah.
pretty conducive to sitting, I guess, with the slant, but it's too
Yeah.
short.
Yeah, you can't overly extend your whole body. You kind of have to like curl up to really utilize the bathtub. Um,
I know.
Also, the town that Kate Winslet's from is just, it's like the perfect, like small town in England, like perfect, like contrast from something like London. Like it's like the outskirts of London, like these more like down to earth, like real human beings inhabit there. Of course, Jude Law and his kids.
Stunning.
It's so stunning. So if you were to house swap with somebody, what would be like your dream destination? Would it be this cottage?
My answer is always Paris. Like I don't need a house. Just like house swap with someone in Paris.
Yeah, the apartments in Paris are notoriously just incredible to look at too. So that'd be great.
But like also home in like Italy or like the south of France or like those very quintessential like holiday towns.
Yeah.
Like, did you see the second season of White Lotus?
Yeah.
Like that palazzo that they rent when they
yeah.
Like I can't even like I would love to one day stay in a home like that. Just during a vacation because I mean that's like extravagant living, but it's so decadent and tasteful. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I even like when I think F. Murray Abraham and his family are trying to track down his relatives and they finally find him in like this countryside home. I don't know if you remember.
So mean. Yes.
Yeah, they're so mean, but I'm like, the house and that property is just incredible. It's like that Italian rural area where it's just still just as gorgeous as everything else. I'm like, oh. Yeah, and they're like assholes too.
I know.
It's so funny. So yeah, we had to have a Nancy Meyers movie on there. Sadly, this is another film that's very obscure, but
Jake, I feel horrible that I haven't seen like any of the movies you're bringing up.
It's all good. I'm honestly, I'm just like, these are really narcissistic picks because they're all just like my favorite films.
But that's the point of
absolutely, yeah. Another Year is a movie from Mike Leigh, and it's about an older couple sort of dealing with retirement and kind of aging and all that good stuff you'll see in Mike Leigh films. But this movie has the most stunning, because what they do for a living is that they're harvesters, and they have an incredible, you can see on the right, they have a garden very close to their home. And what they do is harvest crops and vegetables and stuff, and they sell them to like local farmers markets and like restaurants and all that stuff, which is like that would be like my dream job if I were to do anything else. Honestly, I have no background in any of this stuff, but just like the therapeutic aspect of in another life. Yeah, that would be the route I would go with. And this takes place in like London, England. Like it's an urban setting, but for some reason they have like a really decadent and giant garden where they harvest crops. But oftentimes you see on the
expected this to be in an urban place.
I know, right? Yeah, and like the beyond the fog, I think there's like you can see a lot of like homes and skyscrapers and stuff, which is interesting, like contrast in the film. But also there's a lot of cooking in this movie, and the kitchen that they have, I just love the wood. Like the wood island and the wood countertops and like a nice little stove put in there, and everything looks really vintage. And I don't know, I just love wine drinking, cooking as sort of a mood in your film, and there's a lot of that in this movie. And you have to be comfortable in this kitchen, and they really pulled it off. And like everything is placed in such a particular way, and there's always like fresh basil and certain herbs lying around. It's like my dream kitchen. And like picture like right outside their kitchen is like 2 sliding doors, and there's another garden and like outdoor seating area. And I love urban homes, especially in like Brooklyn, New York, or like in London, that are kind of like these really closed in narrow homes that are like sandwiched between 2 like apartment buildings or something. But they still manage to have like a really gorgeous interior exterior combo, from like the kitchen to the backyard with a little picnic table and garden and all that stuff. So yeah, like Another Year would probably be my dream like retirement home, let's say, where you could just kind of settle down and
that sounds amazing.
Cook all day.
So beautiful. Like,
yes, yeah.
I dream of like my future home all the time, or like maybe I spend too much time on Pinterest and like reading like AD and all of that, watching YouTube videos from like interior designers and stuff, but like I'm so here for it. Like it's so lived in, it's so cozy. I love, love, love the wood, the exposed shelving, that coral paint. They look so
Yes.
happy in that photo.
They are, yeah. And the thing about this film is that they're such a content couple, and all of the conflict comes from like their family members and their friends that like intruding on their lives. So it's like, oh God, it's like a dream scenario of like post post like 50 or 60 years old, just living that way. It's like, oh,
I hope we can have that.
yeah, I know. God, I really do. So this is a pick that I would have picked myself if you hadn't picked it, actually, is The Long Goodbye. And I assume you were talking about his apartment building, so I threw that in there. But also the beachside home in Malibu is another one. So yeah, but that apartment building still exists, by the way. So
really?
I sought it out last year, so I'll definitely take you to see it next time you're in
that
town.
sounds amazing.
Yep, it's still there. I'm not sure if it's modified, honestly, or not, but it's still amazing to see it in the flesh.
Yeah. I maybe you'll have more to say. The thing with like if I have to be honest, like I've seen The Long Goodbye once and I was like blown away by it and I loved it immediately. And like this movie immediately went on my list of like homes that I want to move into. But this movie, like I don't remember it. Like I remember the feeling that it elicited and I remembered loving, again, it's like a very like sun-filled, light-filled home. You have this like stunning balcony. It was like very vintage feeling with the furniture and like not super put together.
Yeah.
And that's just like that's all I aspire to have in my home. Like I just want it. It just felt like a place that was very like I don't know. For me, with interior design, it's like I want the pieces that I have to evoke a feeling or a memory, and some ugly pot, let's say, like that maybe I got from. Here's a good example. Like my brother, when he was in like elementary or middle school, like took pottery classes, and he made like the funniest pots. Like he made the funniest like clay pieces. And I have them, like I have the vases that he made back then, and like I use them all the time. And like visually, they might not be attractive to anyone, but like I think they're so funny and they look funny. And I know that he made them when he was like a wee boy, and so like they mean so much.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
That just translates to like how I feel about homes. Is like I guess you have to have money to do this. So like, I can't say that everything in my apartment like stays true to this idea, but like there are pieces that like had a life and that are associated with like memories. And that's just what I immediately thought of when I saw The Long Goodbye. It's like, it's just, does that make any sense?
No, absolutely.
That's like the feeling that I have when I think of that movie.
No, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that his apartment is unpolished in such a perfect way where you could tell like certain items have such like deep meaning to him and him alone that we don't fully understand. And I don't have any specific examples, but like his kitchen is unorganized, like his whole living space and everything. Things are just placed in a really wonky way. And like, I mean, like you were saying, how their environment should mirror like the personality of the character. That's what it does for Elliot Gould's character in this movie, because he's sort of just a scrambled brain sort of guy.
Yeah,
like he's all over the place, and that's like what his apartment looks like. And I just love like the cat food
possible way.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's sloppy in a good way, and that's why it's a great pick. I also love the high rise aspect. Like the elevator looks almost like futuristic, for the time at least that it came out in the 70s. And it's kind of a weird contrast of like you're isolated, but he has like immediate neighbors for like directly next to him, like all just like topless women. So it's just so funny in that
So
way.
funny.
Yeah, and like
Can't wait to see the place.
yeah, it's so cool to see in the flesh. Yeah. And like even besides like this, the LA architecture in this movie is just stunning. Like there's a lot of houses in Malibu that are depicted here, and they're kind of the same where like the interiors are just like really like cramped, and there's like an abundance of furniture, which I think is really common in like LA households where
Really?
there's just too much. I mean, I don't know personally, but like from what I've seen, yeah, like just an
Yeah.
abundance of yeah, like excess, like which is like perfectly describes LA in a nutshell. So
Yes.
so yeah, that's like a that we needed to talk about Long Goodbye. I would have brought it up if you hadn't, honestly.
I need
And
to watch it like immediately.
it's one of my favorite movies ever. It's just so perfect in every way. And like you were talking about neo noir, like that's probably the greatest of all time. If you ask me, not like erotic thriller, but just neo, like the hybrid of like absurdism and noirs and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it a Criterion? Do you know?
It's not, but I have a Blu-ray of it here somewhere.
Yeah.
You could find it. You could find it. Maybe if you come to Amoeba next time, you could find it there.
Get to the list to buy there.
Yeah. This was my pick. We talked. You brought up Eyes Wide Shut before, and this is an obvious. This is an obvious New York pick. And I picked the shots of him obviously dwelling on the streets. And funny enough, I don't know if you know this about the film, but Kubrick didn't shoot anything on location, and all of these New York shots are completely constructed by hand from set designers. Like every single exterior, none of it was shot in New York City. I think this was shot in like Europe somewhere.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I just love the Christmas aesthetic in New York.
I know.
Like, it's just it feels so artificial in some ways, but it's just gorgeous to look at. Like
Why
you can
didn't you shoot it in New York?
Kubrick's method was like he didn't love to shoot on location. I don't know if he ever did shoot on location in any movies that I could think of. Like if you think of The Shining or something, like that was all constructed to fit like his sensibilities.
They didn't use the Stanley Hotel.
No, yeah, exactly. And like you could easily shoot this on New York at like, yeah, I don't know, like 3 a.m. and pull it off. But I think he just had a particular look he wanted for New York that he wasn't getting like shooting outside there. It's such a Kubrick thing to do. But then the interiors of the apartments that I'm not I think this is of one of Tom Cruise's patients that's like dying. And he's going to visit her one last time. It's like the narrow hallways and there's art plastered on like every corner. But yeah, and it's like that upper class New York elitism kind of personified in these apartments, which obviously fit the whole tone and the themes of the film. But like, I'm just so fascinated by, and again, you could have picked so many different Stanley Kubrick movies for this, but Eyes Wide Shut is the layout of everything, and like the jazz club, and obviously the orgy set piece also could have been included. But it's that extravagance of wealth depicted in New York City. I'm really fascinated by, and yeah, this is my favorite Kubrick movie as well. So I just had to bring it up. So
the interiors are just so beautiful, like the molding on the walls and like that pillar. Isn't that where he lives? Like that's not the home of the patient. I don't. Is it
not? I don't know. I might have been confused on that, but his apartment's similar, so let's just call it his apartment then. Yeah,
you could be right. I see it and I think his apartment, but maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, I watched this movie around Christmas, so it's kind of fresh, but I just remember he was visiting a patient, and there's like a comically long hallway that he has to go down to get to her. So that's what I thought of. But this also could be their home, and their home is just gorgeous as well. Him and Nicole Kidman's house, apartment in New York. Yeah, and like I said, I just love New York architecture and how they managed to make it feel extravagant in such a condensed city. I always think is really impressive. And the fake streets, of course, it's just fucking crazy.
I
Uh,
can't believe I didn't know that.
it's wild because you wouldn't, you know how much money it would have cost to construct an entire like city block that's fake
Yeah,
is just crazy to me. Yeah, but
to shoot in New York, but New York is not New York enough.
I know that's insane. I don't even know if he tried to shoot in New York. I just know he refused to go and even do anything there, which God, it's so funny.
It really
um,
is.
so I'm unfamiliar with this movie, so you'll have to. I chose the two most aesthetically pleasing shots I could from this film.
Um, Comfort of Strangers is an insane movie. Kind of like I guess you would call it an erotic thriller where like a couple is on vacation and they meet, um, I forget the actor's name, who's like just weird. Like he's a very strange man and he like invites them into their home and where he lives. What is the actor? He's like so well known. Like I should
You talking
know.
about Christopher Walken?
Yes. Christopher Walken is like the weirdo in this movie who's like very
Wow,
off-putting.
love
Um,
that.
Typical for him, I would say. But
Absolutely.
this movie, this is, I guess I don't have much new to say that like we haven't already said, but like, again, it takes place in Italy, if I'm not mistaken.
Looks
And the
like it. Yeah.
house where they live is like, it just does not look like it should be a house. Like it has this insane balcony porch situation that's like inside the house, which is why I say it's a balcony, but it's like so expansive with like pillars that overlook the city and it has like a very Moroccan feel to it. And you have like the wealth that comes through in that house and the very like warm, neutral tones,
Mm.
very antique. And I was just very taken aback in a good way when I saw that house because, the reasons that I just said. But again, it's like that very European, beautiful, historic home that like makes sense for the characters because they're very, they're these wealthy people who are kind of, what's the word? There's something like aloof about them, I guess, and the house
Mm.
kind of just speaks to that a little bit where it's like so extravagant and I just love it. Like I guess you just have to see it, but I'm actually seeing a floor plan of it online
Oh
and
wow.
it's just like think like the interior of a church almost like there's like stained glass
Ah,
windows and like those insane like all shapes to the windows. The colors are so vibrant. You really get like Moroccan vibes from it in Italy, I guess, in this home. I
that's
just
amazing.
so it's a weird movie. Like the first time I watched it, I was so like floored by it. And then the second time I watched it, I really was disappointed.
Hmm.
I need to rewatch it again because I don't remember much of it. But
It's Paul Schrader, right? Directed that
yes,
movie.
yes.
Yeah, that's why it's a weird one. Yeah, okay. It's been on my list for a while, so I'll definitely get to that. And
It's also a Criterion.
oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some weird gender dynamic stuff in here that doesn't age super well, but
Oh
because
yeah.
it's Paul Schrader.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of uncomfortable. It's very
mm,
weird, but it's so beautiful.
okay,
How
great.
can it not be?
Yeah, that's definitely an incentive to watch it, especially just this home sounds just stunning.
It is.
Um, Great. The Comfort of Strangers. Oh, I love this one. So
Oh my
this,
gosh, it's been on my list for so long.
yeah, I definitely recommend this one. One from the Heart from Francis Ford Coppola. This is sort of his career ending sort of movie because this movie was so over budget and the sets were so extravagant and large that the budget of this movie just was at capacity and the movie bombed at the box office. It's kind of what we were saying about Babylon. It's like that auteur big swing that dazzles the eyes and is just I don't know. It might be too overstimulating for a lot of people to enjoy. And that's kind of why it bombed. But One from the Heart is just an amazing ode to like backstage musicals, like we were talking about with La La Land, sort of his ode to like Manelli movies and Singing in the Rain, and just how the set feels so artificial on purpose, and it embraces like that artifice of being like on a soundstage and all that, which I just love in film. So it's kind of meta in that way, but as you could see, like just the sets and the colors and the costuming on Nasaza Kinski there, this movie takes place in sort of fictitious Las Vegas. So there's that over extravagance of lighting and like just neon just bursting on every frame. And yeah, God, this movie's right up your alley. Honestly, I think you're going to love it when you see it. And it's one of the most underrated movies ever, like particularly because of the design of every set piece in this movie is so gorgeous to look at. And the movie as a whole is just so sweet and has a big heart and everything. And I just love this movie. So I had to highlight it. And I just love like kind of when directors recreate cities. And so obviously it's like a backstage production kind of implementing like certain like streets or buildings or architecture or even interiors of say Las Vegas in this film. There's like a campy aspect to it. Especially like it was done a lot in the 80s. I just love that stuff. So
that's another good thing about Showgirls.
Yeah, it's similar to Showgirls in that respects for sure. Capturing that just overwhelming feeling that you are when you're in Las Vegas or any just brightly lit town where it's like performance art and stuff like that, and like Showgirls and that whole aspect of performance in Vegas. I love when that's captured on film. I don't know.
I really need to watch this. This was like one of the first things that I added to my watch list.
Really?
Yeah, when I made a Letterboxd, and I just have never gotten to it. I think it like wasn't streaming for a while or something.
I don't know. I don't know where you'd find it. I have a DVD myself.
I would definitely purchase it.
It's so worth it. Yeah, I would love, definitely put it high on your watch list, especially since you're you're into Showgirls. You'll love just the whole look of this film. And Nasaza Kinski, I just love her so much. Another movie. What were you saying? Sorry.
Do we have a lot more?
We have 2 more each, I think.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah, we'll be going. It's going to take longer than I thought.
No. I just feel like I'm getting repetitive with what I'm saying, but these movies, just like all the ones that I've like listed, are basically all ones that I just like want to move into. And Practical Magic like is the same thing. Like the inside of that house, again, it's just like it's so old. Like look at the architecture there. Like who would ever build a house like that today? Where you have again like that little Rapunzel tower with like the balcony at the top, and it's so homey inside with like the older furniture and the sisters who live there. It's just I wish I could move into this house. Like this is one of those homes that like it's not some insane movie, but it's such a beautiful inside with like the built-ins and like exposed plate holders in the kitchen, or beautiful wallpaper with old couches and like built-in bookshelves and beamed ceilings. It's just like my dream house.
Where's the house supposed to be located here?
Let me see, Google.
It almost looks like it could be in Maine or like some East Coast. I don't know why. I think that mainly because of the lighthouse look on the top there. I don't know.
Well, the land was rented on San Juan Island in Washington, so it's like
Ah,
a fictitious town
got
where,
it.
where it's located.
I need to see this film. I've heard it's such a great like cult classic, and
Oh,
Nicole Kidman, obviously.
yeah,
Hmm.
Sandra Bullock. No, it's so much fun, and like I feel like you'll really like the interior design of the movie. It's just
Hmm.
so such a like 50s home, I feel like, with the maybe that's not the right decade. I don't know. It's just stunning.
Is there
It
like a
evokes so much feeling.
yeah? Is there like a gothic aspect to the interiors? Because it looks like you can almost it's like witchcraft almost is like makes its
Yeah.
way into the designs of this house. Like I don't know if you've seen like Ginger Snaps or any of those like modern vampire movies, but like this kind of reminds me of that, late 90s horror aesthetic a little bit.
Yeah. There's I maybe there are some elements of like gothic. I mean, of course the architecture of the house like seeps into the interior as well, but it's
Hmm.
just like it's filled with plants. Like it has like those those like 1930s style Tiffany pendant lamps with like the glass like panes. Um
Maybe. Yeah.
just
Sounds familiar.
it's there's like one photo that I wish I could like show you that I'm like looking at right now. It's just like a little mini greenery in there with like shelves filled with like pots, terracotta pots with plants.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's just it's
Yeah.
very vintage, like it's very nostalgic and so cozy.
Mm, I have to watch this movie. Yeah.
Really do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's high on my list. Um, all right. Okay. Cook the Thief, his wife, and her lover. This one's so self-explanatory. I honestly won't say much about it. But if you've seen the movie and if you've seen any other of Peter Greenway, who's the director, a lot of his work is built on architecture and symmetry. He's obsessed with symmetrical imagery, and a lot of that is incorporated to the design. And the whole design and kind of the framing of this movie takes place at a restaurant,
Mm,
sort of a post-apocalyptic government supervised restaurant. So you can feel this kind of impending control over everything. It almost feels like, oh fuck, I lost it. What happened?
wait, while you do that, I'm gonna get my charger because my laptop is close to
Oh yeah,
dying.
go ahead. We'll take a little breather. Yeah, as I was saying, it all takes place in this kind of post-apocalyptic government sort of building.
Mhm.
I said it better before. I don't know what I said, but there's the there's an open. It kind of evokes Wes Anderson, where there's this open sort of aspect to where everything feels larger than life. And obviously, you can see he plays a lot around with colors and like monochromatic wallpaper, just this drenched in all red. And there's a free nature to the production design of this movie where the colors and the open spaces really evoke the characters' emotions. It's a love story kind of based in this post-apocalyptic capitalist obsessed world. Which is I love post-apocalyptic design mainly because you have like all the freedom in the world to design whatever the hell you want. And Peter Greenway, it's just he loves kind of like dreary but also colorful aesthetics, like kind of married and tried to find a midpoint between the bleak and the beautiful, which I love. And yeah, there's just an amazing diversity of color palettes, and just he really sticks with wide shots, so you can really get the sense of the architecture and the open spaces. And the movie's about extravagance and the abundance of wealth and everything. So it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So again, if you haven't seen Cook the Thief, God, the title is a mouthful, but the Cook the Thief, his wife and her lover is a masterpiece in my opinion. And gosh, just look at the imagery here. Symmetry. I have OCD tendencies, and sometimes symmetry just really calms me in some weird way. I don't know.
Organized and clean.
Yeah, organization is keeping the image just pristine and perfect. I love that. So I think this is your last one, which we already talked about, but
yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about this. I feel like besides like we've talked about it between the two of us, we haven't. I don't know how much we like had in the podcast, but like the movie just is like so incredible with how it plays with the primary colors, and it's so whimsical. I feel like in its design, like there's no place where it's just so colorful. I feel like, and it's really like that just comes out in like the home, for example, that like Emma Stone lives in, like with the roommates. Like it's so colorful and filled with patterns, and you really like just by looking at that place and knowing like the people who live inside, like you don't even need to know the people because you see the home and you see how colorful it is, and all the references to like movies and posters that are on the walls. And you know that the people who live there like are optimistic, and they're dreamers and artists who just like want to make an impact in that field and like make it in Hollywood and everything. And they have so many heroes, you know, from like old movies and actors and actresses and everything. And the movie does so good with color, and like how, you know, it opens with Emma Stone wearing like the white button-up shirt, but then like as she meets Ryan Gosling, you see her in like really bright colors, like in that green dress in the picture here, or like the yellow one that she wears in meeting him, like at that outdoor pool party. And like they're just so representative of the characters. I feel like this is more about color than it is like
sure
the interior. But again, like production design, it's all the same, I feel like. But I just love this movie so much. It's so visually appealing, and I love that you can like visit some of the places like that are in the movie.
Like the Griffith Observatory and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've never been inside. Obviously, like I've been outside, but never inside. It's just such a like fantasy, even though it takes place in Hollywood. It's just not real life.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of calls back to like in the 50s, there was Rebel Without a Cause had like a major set piece was at the Griffith Observatory, so it kind of felt like he was paying ode to that there. But
well,
yeah,
like,
no.
What about the Rialto? Like, is that still around?
The what?
The Rialto?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've never gone to visit, but I'm sure you could take like a whole La La Land tour of all this of all the apartments and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, no, the colors are just stunning in this movie too. And even like, I don't know how he did it, but like the sunset sequence where he's on the pier, I think it's like City of Stars.
Real sunsets.
Yeah, it rarely looks like that in LA though. That's why I was like skeptical. But
maybe they did some stuff in post, but like,
oh yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you've read about it, but like in that dance sequence, like between the two of them after that first party,
yeah,
like they practiced that for a long time, and I think they shot it over like 2 days, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm confusing that with the opening sequence, but like they had to wait for like the exact right moment to get that light with the sunset in
Oh
or no,
yes, yeah.
that wasn't even shot at sunset. I'm pretty sure it was shot at sunrise.
It must have been, yeah, because I think so, yeah.
But it's like crazy. Like that's also so nerve wracking because like if you get it wrong, like if something goes
Yeah.
wrong and like nature is not on your side, like what do you do
hmm
then? The whole production schedule gets
Oh yeah,
shit.
you're fucked. That's like calls back to Babylon when they're trying to get that shot off by sundown, and it's
Yeah,
like a
incredible.
major race against the clock sort of thing. I love that. Yeah. Um. Yeah.
I
No. There's some
was waiting for Brad Pitt to like faint in that scene.
pass out. Yeah. He's like blackout drunk, and he somehow like musters up the strength to do the scene. You're like, holy shit.
I know.
It's so good. Yeah. Yeah. La La Land's obviously gorgeous looking. Yeah. I had that scene, the final dance sequence, which is all takes place on like a soundstage sort of thing. And that it kind of felt like he was doing American in Paris again. And
Mm,
yeah, I love that. Yeah. The blue hues, I guess, is what I captured here.
so
There's a lot.
sad.
Yeah.
So melancholy.
Yeah, it's very melancholy. So that's your last. My last is another obvious one, but I just had to talk about Blade Runner
Mm,
because it's again the quintessential design. I love the marrying of the East and the West in this. You know, you got Tokyo aesthetic, but also the LA aesthetic sort of converging. And obviously a very bleak and sort of wet future that look at Ridley Scott envisioned for this movie, but it's just so striking on every level. And there's obviously on the right you have the Tyrell design from the very beginning of the film, and sort of that sunset kind of bouncing off on all of the pillars, and the almost looks Egyptian like in the background with like the it kind of evokes like that Egyptian pyramid that are kind of silhouetted in the back, which I just love that. And obviously you have the street sequences. I just love again, we were talking about neo noir, and this is like the quintessential neo noir of just there's so much steam coming just in every frame, and also the designs of the cars. Yeah, the neon that's just drenched this whole movie, and the cars that look dirty but also futuristic and cool in that way, but everything, it just feels on the ground especially just dirty and wet and foggy, which is again fits the mood of this movie so well, but also is a great contrast with like this this major corporation that sort of oversees this entire world, and it kind of evokes that like that power dynamic so well, just with the design aspects of this movie. So yeah, and obviously it's influenced just so many movies coming after that, you know, and sort of these sci-fi movies that wanted to do that cyberpunk is what they call it sort of look. So yeah, a very typical sort of film bro pick of me to do this, but it's Blade Runner, so I did it for Lucas, I guess, because he loves that aesthetic a lot, and I do too. So yeah, that's all of them. And obviously, like I said before, like there's probably like 20 more that I could pick. If we were to do like a longer list or like a part two or something. There's just so many, honestly.
Sorry, I keep yawning. I like haven't eaten today.
Oh no, God, yeah. We'll wrap up soon. We've been going for a long time. We
also
both
haven't talked in a second. I feel like we had to catch up.
Yeah, no, that's half of what we were doing. No, I'm happy to do that for sure. I feel bad if I'm keeping you from
Oh no, you're not.
your life.
No,
God,
don't be silly.
it got dark there. I didn't even shit.
I know. I like need to go turn on a light.
Oh man. But thank you again so much for doing this. I had a great time geeking out about this stuff.
Oh, me too.
There's honestly no one else I could think of that would just talk about set design for like 2 hours. So
anytime if you ever want
I
to
appreciate it.
Two,
I think we'll have to, yeah. Because as we were doing this, and like you would mention something that would make me think of another movie, and I would like, shit. I could have talked about Blue Velvet even more. For Isabella Rossellini's apartment in that movie is just so perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, so we could go on probably, but
I would
yeah.
probably, like I have to watch more and like be better and like more diligent about taking notes because sometimes I like overthink what I write on Letterboxd and I should just not care and instead just write down notes for myself about like what I love about the interior or a
Mm.
quote or like something and just use it as like a notebook
No,
because
absolutely.
there are
Yeah.
so many to talk about.
Yeah, because I felt like throughout this podcast, I was like repeating the same sort of terminology over and over
Oh,
again.
me too.
Mainly because I just don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just kind of talking about the things like from my perspective. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
notes is a good idea for next time. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening to this. If you made it through, then you obviously like production design as much as we do. So we appreciate that. And yeah, have a good day and keep watching movies, keep logging them on Letterboxd and let me know what I don't know who I'm talking to anymore at this point, but
The
yeah.
listeners.
Yeah. I felt like I was talking to you because we were talking about Letterboxd, but yeah. Listeners, keep watching movies and I appreciate you guys.